Hello my beautiful people and welcome to this video. My name is Goldbrander, I'll be your host for this. So this video is just going to be about if you should even get into this game called Gundam Battle Operation 2. Many of you may be or took some note or interest of late because of Bandai's new Gundam game coming out, Gundam Rogue Orbit. We might make another video talking about that game, if it's a Gundam game or not, that type of thing. But I don't want to get too far off topic. The first time I recorded this, it was too long anyways, so we're going to get right into it. So we're going to go ahead and address the overwhelmingly negative reviews on Steam because that is the biggest issue for this game. I feel people see it and get scared off immediately. And to be fair, it's a good point. I mean, a lot of the reviews are pretty on point or legit. Uh, and there's only very few that should be taken with a grain of salt because there's so many that are just straight out true. So the biggest one are going to be the disconnection issues, the issues with the netcode for the game. The game does not run off of dedicated servers like many games do these days. It runs off of Bandai's peer-to-peer network, which is, you may be familiar with it if you've played like the OG Dark Souls games, like on 360, Dark Souls 1 and 2 come to mind. Those games had some issues as far as networking goes, and as far as I'm aware, I know Dark Souls for sure was peer-to-peer. So there are many issues regarding that in this game as well. Now there are some ways around it, and there are some other factors that can affect it as far as like the reviews go. Some people could just have crappy internet, some, could have good internet, and they just get the short straw, really. But the biggest issues are the lag, the getting shot and you're already behind cover, hit registration issues, but they can all be attributed to the same thing we just talked about, the peer-to-peer issue, Bandai's old peer-to-peer network. Alongside that, though, I know another sizable amount of the reviews talk about poor optimization, how it's a bad PC port. I cannot speak on that as far as those reviews at what time they were made, because I know at first the game was kind of off to a rocky start as far as PC ports go. However, I will say now, besides the match I just had was my first ever crash in this game. But outside of that, I have never had FPS issues. I've never crashed except for that one time, and it was very rare. It's just very rare. On console, I've never had any issues as far as the FPS drop or crash though. I do play the game on both PC and console, and I will go ahead and preface everything now by saying if you are going to get into the game and you have an option, I would tell you to play it on console is what I would recommend. However, let's get into the rest of the issues that are on Steam as far as the reviews go. A lot of people have an issue with how the combat works in the game. That's a bit of a larger topic. It gets a bit more in depth of like why it's buns, pretty much. But some of them also talk about player toxicity, which that definitely exists, but you mainly find it in higher ranks, or I would say medium to higher ranks. But you especially see it more often in higher ranks. I would say like A and above is when you really start encountering it the most. But let's dig into the combat system a little bit. We won't go super duper in depth to it, but all you need to know is that if you get into this game, you start playing it, you're going to notice really quickly that a go-to method for DPS is a stagger method. And that's because the game works off of a status system. And there's like winces, there's staggers, there's topples. And each one is like, it's worse than the last one, pretty much. So basically, what it is your opponent rushes in or starts staggering you. They rush in close enough to topple you, and then you fall over. After you've fallen over, there's really not much you can do. At that point, you just start taking enormous amounts of damage, especially if their whole team's on you, and then you just die. So it's a problem because it there's certain ways around it for like experienced players and things like that. But when you have like a coordinated team that's going against you or whatever, and they can stagger like one or two of you on your team like at once and keep you staggered until their melee units can like close in and do the damage or topple you, and then they all can just finish you off, it becomes very annoying, especially for newer players who aren't experienced with it or have had to deal with it. Because it's really not forgiving and it can be really one-sided in many cases. But we'll cover even more of that later on in another video. For now, I'm gonna keep it rolling so this video doesn't get too long. But another issue people have with the game is that it's pay to win. That is a super big issue. I would say the combat system, as far as the staggering goes, it being pay to win, and the networking issues make up the largest portions of the overwhelmingly negative reviews on Steam, for sure. But it's pay to win because the way the game works is like this. It is a gacha game. They're called banners in this game. So your banners offer you mobile suits, weapons, or custom parts. And in some cases, maybe some basic apparel items that don't really have an effect, like for your pilot. But the main issue is the mobile suits, the weapons, and the custom parts, because certain ones are not obtainable any other way outside of just hitting the gacha system or hitting the banner. And then there are special banners that come out that are guaranteed to give you certain 5-star suits, which is the highest rarity suits can go at the time of this video. But they're guaranteed to give you certain suits or certain parts. And some of the parts are damage increasing parts, like they increase the damage sources for that player. So that's why it becomes pay to win, mainly. And I was trying to think if we should get into the ways that free to play players can actually get their hands on some of that stuff. But we'll get into that later. We'll get into that at the pros, actually. It's like a good point for the pros. But next is the fact the game is also just requires that wired connection, essentially, because we talked about that netcode, and because this game is sensitive to internet stability, like really badly, it's just better to have a wired connection. Like you can make it with Wi-Fi if you have good enough Wi-Fi, if you don't have too much internet traffic. And if you're doing things like port forwarding, you can pretty reliably get some good matches in, like without lag mostly. But it's just better to have a wired connection. So that's another con for the game, or another issue in the Steam reviews as well. And you know what? I think that might be it for the cons. Oh, nope, there's another page. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. God, it's just so many. Two of these here though are going to be like some like smaller con or smaller issues that I have with the game. So the game is completely quote unquote solo queue for rated matches. Rated matches are where you're going to spend the bulk of your time, especially if you're on PC. Because the player count on PC is lower than console, consoles is low too, but PCs is even lower. It's really hard to find a quick match on PC. So you're spending a lot of time in rated matches or, ranked matches. And you cannot queue with teammates or friends or whatever, homies, buddies, whatever people are calling each other these days. You can't queue with them without working around it. And the way to work around it is just queuing at the same time. But that's somewhat unreliable. But anyways, so I feel like that's an issue with the game because a lot of people like the Japanese players or the players from like Asia and stuff like that, they usually do sit there and back out of lobbies and stuff and re-queue until they get into like their a group where their homies are at, like a match with the homies. And that leads to like what we talked about with the stagger issue earlier. It leads to that team staggering issue, and that's just not fun for the other team who's not in a party together or don't know each other. So I feel like that's kind of bullcrap a little bit, but I feel like that's something that they may fix in the future if the player count rose, because it did used to be in the game. Yeah, back in the day, you were able to invite people to a group and do rated matches together, so they may return to that. And then another issue I have, that's a small issue for me, is the when you sortie on foot, like as a pilot, just walking around outside the suit, it does feel clunky, and it feels pretty slow and sluggish. I can understand it feeling clunky or slow or sluggish for like certain cost levels for the mobile suits, because it is a bit of a more realistic Gundam game. So, if you have a Zaku 1 and you're playing that cost like, or a Zaku 2 and you're playing that cost like 300 or whatever, of course it's going to feel slower. It's going to turn a bit slower because realistically, whatever, that's how that suit would have probably may have moved, you know what I mean? A bit slower and stuff compared to like something like a Sananju or something like that. So those are two like personal issues I have with it. Well, that and the character creation is buns. Like, I mean, it's bad. And the social space could use some tender love and care as far as the graphics. And the run is really bad. As a matter of fact, if you do play this game and you get to the social space and you start running around with your character, yeah, just come back and tell me in the comments what you thought about that. It's beautiful, isn't it? But let me see. We'll wrap this up pretty much here soon. Wow, we really cut the time off of this video. That's good. Another con or another issue that people have are long queue times. You will notice that you have some pretty long queue times. That's because not only just the player count plays a factor, of course, not that many people playing, but your rank also plays a part. So when you first start, you'll start at, I think it's D minus. It's gonna take longer for you to find matches. But I would say once you get to like C plus, or maybe B minus, you begin to find matches much more frequently, a lot quicker. So that does pick up over time and get a bit better. I would say for me, it only takes me like an hour and a half or so to run all the matches I need to do all of my dailies. And I would say the wait times for those matches on PC may be like 5 minutes. Which in today's age, yeah, that's a bit of a long time, but for this game, it's not that bad. Cause trust me, there have been so many other times where I've had to wait way longer. But that's usually at weird times of the day, that type of thing. You might hear some pages turning. Yeah, I have pages of like things on why the cons and like the overwhelmingly negative reviews, man. There's so many. And then we have this one pro page. Oh man. All right, well, for the pros, it truly is the only kind of Gundam game out here that's like this. It is one of a kind as far as like how the realism aspect to it. There's weight behind the movement, there's weight behind the guns, there's weight behind the swings with the sabers. It just feels realistic. And honestly, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, the game has so much potential, that's another pro that we're going to get to last. But the gacha system. So you may be wondering, well, why did I put this under pro? Because it is manageable. So let's say we talked about the pay to win part, right? With the 10-step banner thing. Well, if you don't want to swipe and you do play the game strictly free to play, you can save up enough coins in a reasonable amount of time to clear out an entire banner and then probably have some tokens left over, depending on how many steps the banner is. If it's a 10 step, you may not have any left over, but you're getting a lot out of that 10 step on top of the guaranteed suit that you want. So it's about picking and choosing. But if you play it, I would say if you played this game free to play like you would play Warframe free to play, like you're playing it patiently, you're taking your time. It's not like your main game, you know what I'm saying? You just get on there to do your weekly or daily or your login or whatever, and you're treating it like an MMO. It's not that bad. That's how I played it for a while, and it turned out pretty well for me. So with that being said, I do have some numbers here if it makes you want to feel any better. But using consistent sources, we're not taking into account events. We're not even going to take into account like being in a clan at first. But using consistent sources such as daily missions, login bonuses, simulation missions, you can net roughly 95 to 105 tokens per month. And the only reason that number is variable because some months are longer or shorter than others. But outside of that, that's enough to clear out a banner for sure. But if you were to add in clan content too, such as like your weekly gains from that or daily gains, you end up with like 105 to 114 tokens per month. And then both of those numbers exclude, like I said, any sort of event that Gundam Battle Operation 2 is running. And that brings me to another pro for the game. They are pretty generous as far as events go, handing out free to play currency, some tokens here and there, and they do hand out mobile suits as well. Here recently, like one of the better ones they gave out was the Red Gundam and the GQ UX from Witch of Mercury. They did recently give those out because they were such good suits for the cost level that they're in. So they gave those out for free. On top of, I think it was like 7 other suits. It's usually like 10 suits at a time they give out for free. And there's also like another permanent event that happens every month. And I want to say it is the first Thursday through Saturday or Sunday of every month, whatever. It's called GBO2 days. and it does cost like 30 coins, mind you, unfortunately. But you get like 3-star rarity or higher suits, guaranteed at least 2 of those on top of like whatever else you pull. So they are pretty generous with it. But I mean, at this point, they kind of have to be because the player count had got so low. I mean, it is still low in terms of like other games, but at the time of this video though, there are like 250 mobile suits in the game. So I mean, there's a large variety to pick from, but that does include the banner ones as well. Let me see what else. What else? I thought something that was really cool about the game, I consider like a pro, is like it includes small bits of lore about the Gundams, like what timeline they're from, their production, like background and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty neat. I know it's not a major one, but I thought it was pretty cool. So I figured I would mention that. And then the last pro we'll talk about is the potential of the game. I mean, there's so much potential here. I'm sure a lot of people that actually play the game still already know this, but with some TLC and stuff, the game could make it pretty far. It could even, if they touched up that stagger system, maybe reworked it a little bit, it could even end up being an esports game just because of how team based it is. So I mean, the potential is definitely there. The possibilities are definitely there for this game. And then to top everything off, there is one last con. I mean, I didn't really see this as one in the Steam reviews anywhere a whole lot, but I will say I feel like it is one. There's not really that many meaningful updates, really. I mean, there's a bunch of mobile suit updates. They add in suits, whatever, and they do some balance changes here and there and things like that. They do ban players for cheating pretty good. Like they're really good about banning cheaters and stuff like that, I will say. So, but yeah, that's a big con for me. Like there's not a whole lot of meaningful content updates. Like there's no new maps or game modes, that type of stuff. But I mean, with how the game is and the state of it, that's no surprise. Pretty much a given. But and that's gonna be it for the pros and the cons. And I'm hoping that with knowing this knowledge or whatever, you can decide if you're wanting to get into this game or not. If you do end up wanting to get into the game, I am gonna put out a new video for like a player guide. It's gonna go over some helpful information as far as like certain skills that are good, a couple of recommended suits, um, where to go, and like what costa you'd want to play in and what costa to stay away from, what to watch out for, and just a bunch of other small helpful things I thought that were, whenever I discovered them, I was like, well, I wish I would have known that when I was like a newer player because they would have helped out so much. Oh, and we'll also go over how you want to go about saving your tokens too. But anyways, guys, it is currently 4 a.m. and I've had to redo this video more than times than I'd want to. So anyways, I guess we'll end it there. If you've made it this far, God bless you. Thank you so much. And but other than that, even if you didn't make it this far, whoever watches it, stay hydrated, stay happy, well, stay as happy as you can be or try to be. Always strive and prosper. And always try to do what you love. And if you ever need anyone to talk to, hey, I'm here. You can reach out to me through the comments or you can join the Discord server. However you want to do it. But until next time, everyone, again, thank you for coming out and good night.